I mean, we're both creatives, and photographers do tend to be creatives. And one of the things, and like any creators, whether you're an author or a filmmaker or whatever it is, creative block is a thing, isn't it? So, and that's something that you were reading about, wasn't it?
It is. So we've had the photographer's mentor be a guest on our show many times,
Oh,
Jeff Brown.
Jeff, yes.
Yeah, and Jeff has been on the show several times, and it's a great guy. I came across Jeff during COVID and joined his group, and he has a Facebook group called the Awesome Photographers Group, and a number of different professionals all working in different specialisms, and it's a very valuable group to get ideas from and just to ask questions, on within the industry and how everyone's getting on now. One of the members of the group, Jack Makin, put a post on recently, and it says here, I'm going to read the post. It says, "Hey everyone, I'm having a bit of a meltdown at the moment and was hoping for some help." And that's where this group is really good. It's very supportive.
Yeah.
Firstly, I know you shouldn't compare your work to others, but I'm editing a wedding at the moment and the photos are looking okay, but I want my work to look more like these examples here, but without flat out copying someone else's style. And he's shown some examples of someone else's work, and he says, but I'm struggling to figure out where to begin. I'm usually good with editing too, and just feel like I've hit a creative brick wall at the moment and can't seem to get over it. Then he goes on to talk about the different presets to try and get the color tones that this other photographer's used on his or her pictures. But I didn't really want to talk about the color tones and the problem that he's having with this particular thing about color toning his pictures. I wanted to talk about hitting that creative brick wall, because we all hit a creative brick wall, and sometimes we're not aware we've hit that creative brick wall. We don't realize that we're having an issue with it, and something just doesn't feel quite right. You don't feel as motivated or as inspired as you would sometimes. That can be down to a number of different things, but it's something we all hit, don't we, Mark?
Well, yeah, and I think actually, you know what? Because we spoke about quitting photography last episode, didn't we? And actually, one of the things that I said, and I'm not saying this person should quit, by the way, but one of the things that is an indicator that maybe you should quit is when you do compare yourself so much to somebody else, and you really are worried about likes and what other people think and all this kind of stuff. And he did meant I don't know if it's a he or a she or a they rather on the on the group there, but they also said I didn't want to flat out copy somebody else's style. Now, as you know, Cam, and as our regular listeners know, I have an issue with the word style. I really have an issue with it, because I just think if you're trying to find a style, you're too busy trying to find something that's maybe marketable. And if you're trying to force it, then it isn't authentic, and it's not authentically you. I think what you need to do is create your own, let's say, style, just for the sake of a word. It's about creating the work that really makes you happy, as well as obviously your clients. There is obviously, you do have to obviously bend your will a little bit to what the clients are wanting. But yeah, I mean, if there's certain bits of a photographer that you like, you can incorporate it. If there's someone else that you like, you can incorporate it. Maybe you've seen something in a film that you like, you can incorporate that. Maybe you've seen something in a cartoon or something that's AI generated, which seems to be a thing these days. I promise I wasn't going to say anything about AI today, but I have. Yeah, you can get all these all these things, all the things that you like, all the things that make you tick. Maybe if you're just looking, I mean, I was sitting in the garden yesterday, which was lovely, and just little things you kind of notice, the way the sun comes through the trees, and you think, oh yeah, maybe I could do that with the bride and groom. It's always about just looking and being you. I think if you start worrying about, well, this photographer here, I really like their tones, I really got to copy their tones. No, you don't. You don't have to copy their tones. Find a tone that you like of your own. This is what I would say. And the only way you can do that is just by looking, whether that's through different mediums, whether that's just looking around if you go on a walk or whatever it is. I think that's the way to do it. It's a trap that we all get into. I've been there. I'm sure you've been there as well, Cam. Just having that creative block. But
yeah, you do. But I find that, when, let's just say that a client comes and they, and they say, we've got some products and, we need some photography of these products. And a lot of time, the first thing I ask is, look, what type of thing are you looking for? And because they'll give me a product sometimes, I'm thinking, oh, I've got no idea what I'm going to do with this. And but no, actually, I don't think that. What I actually think, I will say, oh, I'm not quite sure what to do with this, but I'm going to figure out something. That's usually the way I think about it. And what I'll do is I'll throw it back to the client a lot of the time, and I'll just say, okay, first of all, you've got this product, and let's just say, I've got a glass next to me. Let's just say that we're going to show these, this company have got a range of different glasses, drinking glasses, and they'll come to me and they'll say, we need some of these doing. First of all, is where are you going to use the images? What do you need to use them for? Okay, so you go through that process, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Now, that is where you're doing a job for a client, where you're doing a shoot for a client, and you've got to come up with some ideas for what that client actually needs, and what that client's going to be happy with, and fulfills their needs and their requirements, because ultimately they want to sell more products. And your images have to really do that job for them, and then that way they're going to come back to you. So then you've got the hitting the creative brick wall as far as on a personal level. If you're going out to do some photography just because you want to do it for yourself, because you want to go out and shoot some landscapes, or you want to do some street photography, or you just want to do something for a bit of art, for some art. Also, you're working on a project. Maybe you're doing a photography course or a course of some sort, and you've been given a theme, and you just don't know what to do, and so those are two very different, I think, creative brick walls, because I think that I tend to find that if I'm working with a client, I don't really, with a commercial client, I don't really hit a creative brick wall, because I get around that very easily, because I will ask the client, what is it you're looking for? Where are you going to be using the images? That's my first point.
And I'm guessing as well, I mean, because I've done some product photography, and it was through an art director, and the art director basically told me what he wanted, and I just shot it. They weren't. It was. I mean, he said you can get a bit creative, try your own thing, and all this kind of stuff. But he, he had a specific look. He had a specific thing that he wanted to get. And I guess that's the same with a lot of corporate stuff. They have some art director somewhere, or some web designer, that wants the photos you take to match the website, or to match whatever it is that they want to do, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's their job at the end of the day. And if they do come to you, sometimes it can make it a bit more difficult, because you think, oh, I've got to try and figure out how I'm going to actually do this, and execute execute what they want to do.
Yeah.
But a lot of time that a company will come to us, and they'll say, right, we've got this range of products, we need some shots. Okay, as I said, the first thing is, where do you need them? First of all, they might just need cut out some white background, because they want to use those on say Amazon or something. They might want to use them for their website. So you start looking at, well, do you need these shots on a plain background, whether it's a color background? Do you need lifestyle shots? So one of the first things I'll do is I'll ask them what their competitors do. Who are your competitors? What are they doing? Let's go and have a look at what they do. Let's go and have a look at what other companies are doing. How are they promoting their products? So that's really that's the first thing I'll look at. And then I'll think, okay, right, these guys are nailing it. This is really good. Or I'm thinking, oh, wow, we can do so much better than their competitors. And that's one great way of actually, dealing with your own, client, is by saying to them, we're going to do something that's so much better than your competitors, and see what they're doing. And then once you start to see what that company's competitors are doing, and you say, well, I really like what this company do, and I really like what this other company do, and you can start to sort of get different ideas from different people, because creative ideas all come from previous knowledge. An idea might just pop up in your head, and you think, wow, come up with this amazing idea to do these great pictures, but really it's not just popped up in your head. That idea has popped into your head from your previous experiences and your previous knowledge. You've seen it somewhere or something similar. Or what you've done is you very quickly mentally pull together all these different ideas and put it into one. And yes, it might be your idea, and it might be a unique idea, but it's still taken but it still come from somewhere else. I always say music is a perfect example of it. The music
Mm.
of today wouldn't be here today that we hear. Say, I'm talking about mainstream music, if it wasn't for the music that had gone on before that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, jazz and blues has developed into rock and
Mm.
and different, and then it took off into different tangents and things. But music always you can always relate whatever, any type of music, back to something else that happened that's come and gone, sort of, from
Mm.
previous years. And it's the
Mm.
same really with photography. So when you hit a creative brick wall there, I think it's more a case of asking others, talk to
Mm.
others, look at what other people are doing. I know in wedding photography, a lot of the wedding images that I shoot, particularly if it comes of the bride and the groom, particularly of the bride, and I've not done this for many years. I don't feel like I need to now because of the number of years I've been doing it. But I used to look in fashion magazines. I used to look in bridal magazines, but I used to look
Mm.
at not the images that other photographers had shot. I was looking at the shots that were used for advertising, which were shot very,
Mm.
very differently.
Yeah.
So they were more fashion style images, and which is what I was shooting. That's how I was learning. The
Mm.
problem we have now is really we're all looking. Everyone's work now is available to view on social
Mm.
media. So we'll go and look at a photographer and think, wow, I love his or her work. That's amazing. I want to do that. Um, and so getting ideas from all of these other people, from these other photographers, and copying them, there's nothing wrong with that, because copying them from there, you develop your own style. And you might think, oh, I tried it and it doesn't quite work for me, so I did it slightly differently and I've done something that works better for me. So feel free, there's nothing wrong in copying something, because really everything we do has been copied from somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference between copying and just blatantly plagiarizing, I guess,
Mm,
or being inspired. I guess that's different thing. I mean, I think one of the other things as well is working with other professionals, because I know we bounce off ideas all the time,
yeah,
don't we?
yeah, that's right.
And I think that's, we all bring different things. We all have a different way of working, and we bring things in. I mean, I obviously do work with you. I work with another wedding company. I do my own weddings as well. And also I'm studio based, so I bring some of my studio knowledge into
Mm.
what we do wedding wise. So it's just about collaboration is really, really good. And I don't know, just maybe to being, this person obviously shoots their own weddings. There's nothing wrong with, opting to being a second for another wedding photographer. You get paid and they'll tell you to do things in a certain way, and you go, oh, I wouldn't do it like that at all, and leave it. But then someone else might go, oh, hang on, yeah, why don't I do that? That's an amazing idea.
Yeah,
And it could be all sorts of different ways of doing it.
yeah, I mean, there's always something to learn from everywhere. Your
Yeah.
surroundings, whether it's your surroundings or whether you're looking at online or something, you never stop learning. So the point, when you get to the point that you think, okay, I'm doing everything 100% correctly, I don't need to look at what's going on around me or anything. That's a time when things are going to start to go downhill, because you're not looking for inspiration from anywhere else. So
Mm.
you always need to be aware of what's going on. And I'll constantly look at stuff that's going on around. If I'm looking online, if I see an image and I think, oh, I like that, I wonder how that was done, I like the tone of that picture. Or I look at an advert on TV, or I watch something on Netflix and see the way it's been filmed and the color
Yeah.
tones on the way that something's
Yeah.
been filmed. Inspiration is all around us more than ever before. It's just that we don't realize it. We don't realize that that's inspirational to us. We just, when you're watching, say, a series on Netflix, why are you engrossed in it? Are you engrossed
Mm.
with the story? Yes, you're engrossed with the story, but you're probably already you're probably engrossed with the way that it's also being filmed, but you're perhaps
Yeah.
not aware of that as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
think
think
that,
as sort of image creators, I'm just trying to think of the word that sort of encapsulates everything there.
yeah,
Image creators.
yeah,
I mean, I do notice these things when I'm watching a film or something, which maybe my friends wouldn't necessarily recognize. Oh, what was your favorite part of the film? Well, I really liked the way this person was lit in this scene. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
And I'd be like, what? It, it's it. I remember when I watched. I was quite young at the time, and I was still working for Venture, and Me and my wife we're watching The West Wing. I'm not sure if you guys have seen The West Wing.
I know, yeah.
And there was a certain scene where one of the characters was lit in a certain way, and I was like, I've got to try that in the studio.
Yeah.
And it just changed the way I lit certain things. So yeah, you've always got to. It's always worth just keeping your eyes open, looking at different things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I was working with a photographer going back a few weeks ago. We were doing some video stuff, and he bought some lights. They were so there were some Pixar Pro ones, and they were amazing. And I went out and bought them, and I've used them since. He just that little thing from the lighting, what those lights did, really inspired me to do that. Mark, I've been working with you and some of the LED lights that you've bought, and that's really inspired me. And so you're constantly inspired by others. Now let's look at music. Let's just jump back to music for a moment. When an artist just records, when an artist records an album of covers, some people might think, oh, he or she's recording an album of covers. You can look at it in two ways. You can look at it in the sense that, are they doing it because they genuinely want to do it? Are they doing it because they've hit a brick wall and they can't come up with something creative? Right? But they're copying something and putting their own interpretation on it. And as photographers, we can do that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think with covers, it does depend on the cover. There's some awful covers out there.
That's right. Yeah.
But
yeah.
Similar
I mean, I'll tell you somebody who I think has hit a creative brick wall for many years. Now, whether you like him or whether you don't, I think is Rod Stewart. Okay. And I'm not going to go into it in depth here. Okay.
He has been around for a while, so I think we can forgive him for that, right?
He's been around for a while, but I think Rod Stewart hit a creative brick wall many, many years ago. And he's been doing this Rod Stewart songbook series of albums or whatever it is. And I don't think he's had anything new to offer for many, many years. Now, a lot of Rod Stewart fans might completely disagree with that. Okay?
Yeah, we might get a lot of Rod Stewart haters coming out. Well, fans hating us, rather.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So this is just my sort of opinion on it. But for me, there's somebody there and that's hit that creative brick wall. Now, it's not as easy to identify with photographers. Only you can identify that yourself, I think. If you're a wedding photographer and you're doing a lot of weddings, do you find yourself doing the same thing week in, week out, week in, week out? Are you shooting? It's easy to do that, but also at the same time, though, you're in different surroundings. You've got different people, you've got different weather conditions. There's so many different factors that each wedding still becomes an individual just based on where and shooting it and what your subject is.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's probably the right thing. I mean, I guess what we're saying is to people, if you are, worried about things creatively, we all hit that brick wall. Just really look at all these different mediums that are out there. Speak to other people. Maybe if you're a wedding photographer who's get a creative block, there's nothing wrong with offering to be a second for another photographer, and maybe you'll get some ideas from there, and it might just spark you off again. Which
you're right, and that's giving me an idea here. I'm going to very quickly try and give top tips for I think, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay. So like wedding photographers, okay, if you've hit a creative brick wall, go on social media, look at Instagram, look at lots of different photographers, look at their work, pick out maybe 4 different images from 4 different photographers or 4 images from one photographer, and see at your next wedding if you can replicate those images. And as soon as you've shot that image, do something slightly different in your own style as well.
And if I may, just to sort of tack on to that idea, it's a brilliant piece of advice, but don't go necessarily just for the top earners, the photographers that charge £10,000 a wedding or whatever it is. Don't look at them, because they've got celebrities and they probably have double the amount of time that a general wedding has to get the romantics, for example, and they might be in some castle on an island somewhere. Do you know what I mean? So don't just look at those people. Look at the people who are just down the road from you. Look at the people who are shooting in the same area as you, because that is a lot more achievable than these super duper David Beckham style weddings. Do you know what I mean? It's That's just right, pointless. Yeah. If you're trying to compare yourself to that, you're hiding for nothing, really.
That's right. Yeah, and you've said exactly the right word: achievable. Make it achievable. Don't look at pictures that are going to be very difficult to achieve, because you're going to look at it and think, actually, there's nothing like, no, I failed at that. That's not good. Do something that's really easy, but you just really like it. Maybe it could just be with the way the bride has been positioned. Maybe it's where she has her hands. Maybe it's the way that her face is slightly turned. Do something that that you could do even with your eyes closed.
Mm,
And then from there, you can adapt your own idea. And then from there, you can take that idea even further. And then from there, you can maybe add some lighting next time. And then you can make it, as challenging as you want, but keep it very, very simple, keep it very, very achievable. So
mm,
that's one thing. When it comes to, say, a commercial client, again, look at what others are doing. If a company local to you wants some photography doing, look at what their competitors are doing. What are they putting out? How can the company that you're working for, how can you improve on what their competitors are doing and put them one step ahead? So that's another way of getting out of that creative, that hitting that sort of brick wall of getting out of that as well.
yeah.
Now, if you're doing so that's 2 tips. I've got one more. One was for wedding photographers, one was for commercial,
Mm,
and one other tip I would say is just for general photography. If you're just going out doing photography on your own, just
mm,
because as a hobby, for a project you might be doing or something, what's the best tip for that?
mm.
Mine is research, Mark.
Absolutely, research and it really depends on the style, the type of photography that you're going for. If it's street photography, maybe look up where you're going to go. Maybe look at the history of it, because if you can, maybe there's an interesting fact about a certain building that's going to be in the area that you're taking a photograph of. Maybe look up that fact. Maybe you can somehow integrate that fact into your photography. Family photography and portraiture. I mean, that's obviously something I do a lot of. I'm always looking at other people's work, just to seeing, not necessarily to copy or to see. It's just to see where trends are going as well. What are people wanting in their living room at the time being? Also, I look at sort of what's going on interior design wise as well. Is my work going to fit in what people have in their rooms these days? Things like that is always a good thing. Portraiture, like I said, the West Wing changed my life in a certain respect when it came to lighting, which is really random. I was watching it to watch it, and I saw this scene, and I was like, "Oh my god, I want to try that!" And it was an achievable thing to try, but it was just I hadn't seen it necessarily before. Yeah, I probably had, but I hadn't actively seen it before. So yeah, just looking at all these different places, looking at all these different things. We are saturated with images, which can be both a good and a bad thing, you know. But look at, don't just keep looking at people's doing their selfies, and don't just look at, people can be seduced about, you get these like really beautiful models or influencers or whatever, there are some people on this planet, I am not one of these people, but there are some people on this planet that however you take their photograph, they're going to look amazing. All right. If you want to take a picture of me, you've got to work at it, because I'm not one of those naturally beautiful people. Most of us aren't. So don't just look at those, look at people. I mean, I'm in the middle of watching Netflix series, Arnold, which is obviously about Schwarzenegger, and it's a limited three episode. And, Schwarzenegger is looking old now, I mean, he still looks good, but he is looking old. And, although he was very featured, he is very featured. I wouldn't necessarily say he was necessarily a beautiful man, but he works on his body and on obviously all of that, but he's got strong features. But even now, the way they lit it, the way they shot it, I was thinking, yeah, he's looking good, I mean, there's probably makeup and hair dye, I guess, but he is looking good. And that's a good thing to look at, as well as looking at, what he was like however long ago, or the Beckhams of this world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So lots of points to be taken there
Yeah.
from there. It's not rocket science. Hey, do what we do. We look at other ideas. We're always looking around us, and that's where you'll get your inspiration from.